Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nate here. And to say Skyrim is a massive game might be a bit of an understatement, and perhaps a little repetitive at this point too. The world Bethesda crafted for the Elder Scrolls V that it lets players loose in is nothing short of astounding. But in such an expansive game with so many stories and characters, there's bound to be a handful of things that don't always add up or make the most sense. Skyrim boasts a number of unexplained happenings and stories worth taking a glance at. So, that's what we'll be exploring today, as we take a look at 5 more mysteries in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Starting off, who is the Pale Lady? Well, that's kind of easy. She's a Wisp Mother living in Frostmere Crypt, and primary antagonist of the quest, the Pale Lady. But more specifically, what's her backstory and what are her goals? You see, the quest that she's attached to intentionally leaves these questions unanswered. The TLDR of it is that after you enter Frostmere Crypt, you'll overhear bandits talking about how one of their own recently went mad and stole their boss's sword, making a beeline for a recently dug up cavern towards the bottom of the dungeon. Some journals you can find in the dungeon will reveal that the bandits here at Frostmere Crypt have taken to excavating various portions of the ruin, hoping to find pieces of treasure. At one point, they accidentally dug into a massive, beautiful ancient glade that they assume hasn't been touched in hundreds of years. Within that glade was an altar with a sword on top of it. The bandit leader, a Nord named Kier, thought that sword looked cool, so he took it for himself, and that was that. But shortly after doing so, one of his men started to go a little bit mad. He started muttering about nightmares revolving a figure named the Pale Lady, and started to ask Kier to borrow his sword all the time. Apparently, just before you arrived, that crazy bandit finally snapped. After carving through a number of not-so-friendly bandits who are angry you're trespassing, you'll arrive into that very same cavern previously described, where you'll find that very same crazy bandit running up to an altar and fighting a unique Wisp Mother named the Pale Lady. No matter what, he'll lose every time, and you'll have to either finish defeating the ghost for yourself, or return her sword to make her go away and complete the quest. At first, it seems reasonably obvious what happened here. Some bandits were digging around, stumbled upon an ancient tomb, took an artifact from it, and awoke a very angry ghost who wants her artifact back. But that's not actually the full story behind this Wisp Mother character. The book, Lost Legends, which discusses a variety of ancient beasts said to be inhabiting Skyrim, has a brief passage which talks about this same Pale Lady. It reads, quote, "For generations, the people of Morthal have told whispered tales of the Pale Lady, a ghostly woman who wanders the northern marshes, forever seeking her lost daughter. Some say she steals children who wander astray. Others that her sobbing wail strikes dead all those who hear it. But behind these tales may lie a kernel of truth. For ancient records speak of Amriel, a mysterious figure Ysgramor's heirs battled for decades and finally sealed away." That's all the text has to say. But this figure seems to have been disturbing people long before these bandits disturbed her, and may have even been a bit of an adversary to the early Nords and Atmorans who inhabited Skyrim before they finally managed to bury her away, whatever that means. Though this still doesn't address why she loves her sword so much. But whatever the Pale Lady's true nature may be and what her objectives are, only she seems to know. And she, well, isn't very talkative. Next on our list, Dwarven civilization is, alone, a very mysterious and controversial topic in Elder Scrolls lore. But after completing the quest, Lost to the Ages, which sends the player to locate a legendary Dwemer forge capable of smelting a material known as Ethereum, the Dragonborn will be able to use it to craft a number of especially unique and powerful Ethereum Dwarven artifacts. Among them being the Ethereal Staff, which is capable of summoning a Dwarven spider, or sphere, to the Dragonborn's location to act as a follower for 60 seconds. At first, this seems cool enough, and your new automated friends will actually make for some pretty useful allies. But how is conjuring Dwarven machines out of thin air even possible? Conjuration magic is something we have a pretty good understanding of in the Elder Scrolls universe and in Skyrim. Generally speaking, when the player conjures something, they're taking it from another dimension and bringing it into the mortal realm. So for instance, when you conjure Daedra in Skyrim, you're not actually creating an entirely new Daedra, instead you've simply teleported one from Oblivion and brought them to you. Funnily enough, even when you conjure up non-living items like swords with magic, According to mages we meet in the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, all you're really doing is forcing some very unlucky Daedra to take the shape of an inanimate object for a little while and then summoning it. So your bound swords and bound bows are, in reality, Daedras themselves. But I digress. The point is, as far as conjuration magic goes, the player is never really creating anything, just moving things around between dimensions. So that begs the question, if we're not creating them, where are these dwarven machines you're able to conjure up coming from? Now, we know back when they still, well, existed, the Dwarven were very interested in traveling between various realms outside of the mortal one. It's quite likely that there are a number of Dwarven automations currently in some far-off dimension, and that's how the ethereal staff is able to summon them in the first place. If that's the case, then it leads to even more questions. Where and what is this dimension, and how do we get to it? And if there's Dwarven Machines currently in it, then it may not be too much of a stretch to imagine that there's also some living dwarves there too. We'll likely never know for sure, but this seemingly minor staff may in fact be one of the few gateways to the last surviving remnants of the very society that forged it. Coming at number 3, during the Dark Brotherhood's last main quest, Hail Sithis, the player finally sets out to fulfill the guild's largest contract in centuries, and assassinate Emperor Titus Mede II. To do this, you'll have to sneak aboard his personal ship, the Kataraya, which will be docked near Solitude, and fight your way through a number of loyal bodyguards and sailors, before finding the elderly ruler in his room and murdering him to death. But don't worry, the Emperor is surprisingly cool about the whole affair. Though, what you might not know is that there may already be a murderer aboard this vessel other than yourself. Inside one of the Kataraya's cabins, the player can find an unnamed sailor sitting on a chair. But in his company, laying on a nearby bed, will be a dead Penitus Oculatus agent. And shockingly, underneath the bed the sailor is closest to will be another corpse, this one belonging to a sailor. What has happened here? The most prevalent theory is that the sailor that's alive in this room may in fact be a killer. I mean, how else can you so nonchalantly sit down when you know there's a dead guy stuffed underneath the furniture next to you? No matter. This ship ain't big enough for 2 assassins. You know what you're gonna have to do. For 4th spot, the Forsworn are a shady organization of bandit-like tribes native to, and harassing the people of, the Reach. Not too much is known about them, other than that their ultimate goal is to effectively take control of the Hold, and basically make it into their own little country. Well, among the Forsworn's many secrets, possibly one of the most intriguing is what exactly is going on with their Briarheart soldiers. Forsworn Briarhearts are high-ranking barbarians you can encounter pretty much anywhere there's other Reachmen. But something's a bit different about the Briarhearts that makes them stand out, and you've probably noticed. Their skin's a much paler color. Unlike their companions, they don't seem to talk at all in battle, and most obviously, their heart appears to have been ripped out and crudely replaced with a Briarheart flower. So what's the deal here? What ritual did these people undergo to get this way? Are they undead? And why would they want to do this to themselves in the first place? Well, we do have some answers. For one, Briarhearts aren't undead. Or, they at least aren't totally undead. They're immune to enchantments that have increased effects against undead enemies, and won't be seen with the Detect Undead spell. Furthermore, we can witness what's likely the ending stages of the creation of a Forsworn Briarheart at Lost Valley Redoubt, where on a small table, the Dragonborn can find a Briarheart agent laying down, flanked by 2 Hagravens who will utter a short chant before he rises up. This suggests that Hagravens, of all things, have something to do with the whole process. And on that table, there's even a filled soul gem, perhaps implying that the original soul of a Briarheart may have been manipulated in some way, if not is entirely gone. But we still don't know why someone would want to do this to themselves. What are they hoping to gain? Whatever their nature truly is, make sure you put as many Forsworn Briarhearts out of their misery as possible. And finally, last on our list, Lokir is one of the first faces the Dragonborn gets the chance to meet. He's the only other non-Stormcloak prisoner aboard the carriages riding into Helgen at the game's introduction. The Nord is portrayed as especially cowardly, begging the gods to save him, which they don't, and criticizing the Stormcloaks for getting him into this whole mess in the first place. Apparently you both were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, and walked into an Imperial ambush that was meant to capture a bunch of Stormcloaks. Lokir isn't entirely innocent himself, however, as he admits to have been riding a stolen horse at the time of his capture. but maintains he's definitely not a Stormcloak, and doesn't deserve to die. Alas, he meets his end just a tad prematurely, as rather than submit to the Imperial headsman, Lokir attempts to make a run for it, only to be taken down by archers. Now, on the ride to Helgen, Lokir states that he's from Rorikstead, and here's where stuff stops making sense, because that Imperial ambush you walked into was at a location in the Rift, i.e. nowhere near Rorikstead, called Darkwater Crossing. So what was Lokir doing riding a stealing horse in this area? Well, on the ride, Lokir sort of makes it sound like he was fleeing Skyrim. He remarks that had the Stormcloaks not had the Empire sewn on edge, he could have been, quote, halfway to Hammerfell by now. Now, forgetting for a moment that Hammerfell is on Skyrim's western border, the opposite side the Rift is on, this still leaves us with a lot of questions. Specifically, why flee Skyrim? And even if he wasn't fleeing Skyrim, maybe that was just a figure of speech or something, what was he doing all the way in Darkwater Crossing? If you go to Rorikstead for yourself, you'll find no mention of Lokir. None of the townsfolk speak his name, and he doesn't seem to have a home in the area. This could just be some sort of developer oversight, but Rorikstead in and of itself is a pretty mysterious place too. The crops have been yielding bountiful harvests consistently, despite the fact that the soil Rorikstead sits upon is downright terrible. Not a single woman in the settlement's history has survived childbirth. And one of Rorikstead's leaders even has a Daedric book hidden away inside of his home. Suffice to say, a lot of people believe something very sinister may be going on with Rorikstead. And perhaps that might have been what Lokir was trying to escape from. It's also possible that maybe he was trying to escape Skyrim's political turmoil. But even if that was the case, if he's looking for a place with stability, Hammerfell is definitely not the place to go. It's locked in a brutal war between the native Redguards and the Aldemary Dominion. If he wanted stability, Cyrodiil to the south or High Rock to the north would have been much better options. Whatever it is Lokir was trying to escape from, be it civil unrest or Daedra worshippers, it's safe to say that he died as he lived, fleeing in terror. And with that, we are going to wrap up. 5 more theories in The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Which of the ones featured on this list did you find to be the most fascinating? And what are your own potential theories that might explain some of these? Leave a comment down below. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated, and I hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everybody.